My guest today is Victor Torres, a man that had embattled with heroin, an opioid, and as we know today in our world, that has become something that is rampant. Victor, love to have you here, man.
Well, Sean, it's a joy to be here on the program today and to share the love of Jesus.
That's awesome. Now, when in your story, you had a chance to take a look at it. I mean, how did you find heroin, or did heroin find you? How did that kind of work itself out?
Yeah, I think that heroin found me. Okay. I was 14 years of age, took a shot for the first time, and from there on, snowballed. I mean, my life changed completely, and now I'm a mainline heroin addict, not only using drugs, but also selling drugs, into a gang where most of all the gang members were using drugs, and a lot of violence. My whole life changed from that moment on.
Well, yeah, and what is the kind of the allurement that pulls you into that? What I mean, you're looking at young people today, and what is the draw that brings people into that kind of a lifestyle?
I think the influence, the attraction, imagination. Also identity. You know, you want to identify with those that you're hanging out with, that you're running with, and you feel like, you'll be left out if you don't do what they're doing. So I used to say, I would never become a drug addict because I used to see others that were on drugs, and I didn't want to be that way. And then suddenly, I'm on a rooftop with 4 guys and doing exactly what I said I would never become. And so, the influence is so powerful. Just to see the reaction, you think you're missing something in life. There's an emptiness to begin with in your life. You just don't know how to fill that void. And then drugs come around, marijuana or heroin or whatever it is. And the next thing you know, you're doing it. You're doing the same thing that the others are doing.
Now, as you began to kind of do that, and you were part of a gang, the Romans, is that correct?
The Roman lords.
The Roman lords. Now, how did that kind of initiation happen, and why did that continue to keep you there for so long and so?
Well, I grew up in a neighborhood where you felt like you was going to die every day, fighting in school every single day, on the streets. And at the age of 12, I stabbed another young man. I was arrested. Just a little boy, next thing I know is they're pulling me away from my father and my mother and taking me down to jail. And that initiated really the gang violence, because I felt like I needed to be a part of this clique, of this group of guys that were hanging out on the streets. And so I accepted the challenge. Had to fight one of the toughest guys in the gang, and accepted into the gang. Now I'm a Roman lord, and once you join the gang, there is no way out. There's only 2 ways out: you die, or you move away.
So it's kind of like geographical, or you're dead. Now, so if you're in a prison, though, as you got incarcerated, your membership in the gang stays the same. Does it get elevated?
No, it stays the same, and you hang out with those that you identify with.
Now, was there somebody particular in the gang that you looked up to and that continued your desire to be a part of this?
Yeah, of course. You always look to the president of the gang, and you want to be. There was this guy, we used to call him Bebop.
Okay.
And yeah, but he was a street fighter. This guy was amazing, and you wanted to be like him. And then also you want to have this fame that you're not afraid of anything. And that was me. I owned 3 guns. I had a 22 long rifle. I was not afraid to shoot at anybody, and I was always the crazy one, that I would be willing to do, whatever it took to gain some respect in the gang. And that's what gets you into a lot of trouble.
Well, Victor, at some point in your life, you really hit rock bottom, and there was a man that came into your life. Tell us a bit about that man and what he did for you.
Yeah, well, my mother was searching for a way out for me. And she heard about David Wilkerson, though David Wilkerson was preaching in my neighborhood. But, I at that time, I was so blind into the gang life and drugs. I didn't put two and two together, you know, but my mother did, and she connected with him. And she introduced me to the home that this man had opened up for drug addicts and gang members. So I went, you know, thinking it was just another home. And when I got there, I was really impacted. I had to withdraw from drugs cold turkey. And that's when, right there, my desperation, I got on my knees, I asked Jesus to come into my life, and I had an encounter with God that transformed me completely. And then, you know, God put a calling on my life to do the same thing that he was doing, only that, you know, I opened up my home, my personal home.
So let's talk about that. You had this street preaching experience, and somebody said yes to Jesus for the first time. And talk a little bit about that story.
Yeah, we were on the streets, and this was in Richmond, Virginia, and I was preaching in front of a nightclub called The Back Door. And as I was preaching, I had about 50, 60 kids around me. And this guy, when I made the altar call, he came forward, and he was a kid running from the police, from the authorities, and doing drugs. And right there on the streets, he gave his life to Jesus. And I said, you know what? You're coming home with me. And took him home, and he became our first convert, our first student, because that's what we call them. We call them students. Right in my own home, we opened up a house. Many others follow. And from my house, we birthed this ministry where we have had over 20,000 young men and young women come, probably 25,000 young men and young women that have come to our homes looking for help and deliverance from drugs.
That's incredible. So talk to us a little about a couple of the houses that you have. You have the Mercy Home, and then you have the Mercy Home for Moms, and then you have the New Life Ranch. Give us a little bit of a rundown of those things, and how does someone apply, as you call them, students, and then and go through that process of redemption from being addicted to drugs?
Yeah, usually, you know, someone that's looking for help, they don't know what to do. Parents find out about our program. They bring them to our home. We accept them into our program. You know, obviously they have to want to change, and then we take them in for 1 year, whether it's a girl or a guy. Sometimes they're women with children, and we take them in and disciple them for 1 year. The program is not supported by government support. We don't get any federal funding or anything like this. But we do have a commercial part where we have vocational training. We have an all-out professional car wash that is run by the students. We have a furniture store, clothing store. And this is where our students, the guys and girls that are in the program, they get trained there, and they land a job when they finish our program. If they finish our program and been through our vocational training, they will land a job. And today we have had tremendous miracles, lives that have been changed, plugged back, taken back into society, and living productive lives.
Come on. That's really awesome. And Victor, you also, your story has been well documented, and it's been turned into a movie, and you've also written this book to help people assess where their loved ones are on the spectrum of being addicted to drugs.
Yeah, you know, about 1.5 years, I felt in my heart to write this book, Reaching Your Addicted Loved One. And I just put 47 years of experience into this book with every possible scenario or question that people face. You know, how do I know that I have an addicted loved one? You know, what do I do when I find out that there is addiction in my family? You know, where do I go from here? Because the first thing that happens, you know, people panic. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And so I felt in my heart to write this book, Reaching Your Addicted Loved One, which I believe anyone that has an addiction or has a loved one that has an addiction should get this book, because in it, I mean, God just gave us tremendous key points and resources that will help families that are facing this crisis today. Because today it's not a matter of just bringing someone into a rehabilitation program. It's a matter of reaching out and saving a life. I mean, that's how desperate the situation has gotten.
That's awesome. Hey, and if you're really looking for some help, and you have an addicted loved one, I highly suggest this book, as I have read it and numerous other people have read it. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.